Hi, tea sippers! Thank you for listening to Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. This is my last episode of the year and my last episode of my first season of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. It has been quite the challenge, and also it has been quite fun being vulnerable, sharing my life, sharing different topics that I'm interested in, and I'm hoping to continue this trend in the new year. Now, stay tuned, because on today's episode, we're going to get into some political tea and some reality tea, and you know I bring it to you fresh. So grab that tea, grab that coffee, grab that Crystal Light, grab what you need to grab, baby, because the tea is about to get filled and spilled. Hi, tea sippers. Welcome to an all-new episode of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long, where we get political and talk about the news, and we also talk about reality TV, but right now let's focus on things that are happening in America. So, Bondi and these Epstein files, what's actually happening? So the Department of Justice missed the December 19th legal deadline to release all the Epstein investigation files required under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. So, yeah, that's actually happening right now. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said that the Department of Justice would release several 100,000 documents, but not the full set until the next couple of weeks. And we have House Democrat Garcia Raskin, who said the Department of Justice is defying Congress and are examining all legal options, including contempt or legal action. Now, recently, MSN Now, and I have Nicole Wallace reporting, says that the Department of Justice is going to release a batch of Epstein files hours ahead of the deadline, right? So that's interesting given what happened this morning. And critics are arguing that Attorney General Pam Bondi has a history of reversing herself on transparency when it comes to these files, and which raises doubts among Americans about what's actually happening. So let's take a listen.
This morning, the Trump administration made a rather startling admission. Here's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
I expect that we're going to release several 100,000 documents today, and those documents will come in all different forms, photographs and other materials associated with all of the investigations into Mr. Epstein. And so I expect that we're going to release more documents over the next couple of weeks. So today, several 100,000, and then over the next couple of weeks, I expect several 100,000 more.
Next couple of weeks, what? You heard that and said, that's not what the law said, then you and that bipartisan coalition in Congress probably have something in common. Following those comments this morning, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released a statement suggesting the Trump administration is in violation of the law for failing to produce everything before tonight's deadline. Quote, for months, Attorney General Pam Bondi has denied survivors the transparency and accountability they have demanded and deserve, and has defied the Oversight Committee's subpoena. The department.
Isn't that interesting? So they're saying the files are being released, but Democrats are pretty much saying that this is not the case. Now, the Department of Justice is allowed to withhold information if it's tied to an ongoing investigation or some kind of national security. So there's no telling as if that's what's happening right now. And clearly, the argument is that that's not the case. So there's always something going on with a cover-up with this administration. First, we have the Epstein files, and we have several other things happening, like with the illegal things happening for immigration and people being sent out of the country that were legally here and went through a process. So this corrupt administration is at it again, y'all. And it doesn't even get any better than that. Now, moving on from this topic, Trump's White House plaques, right? So he has all these plaques in the White House. Like any other president, you'll see Abraham Lincoln and other previous presidents with a plaque there. And Trump installed new plaques under his presidential portraits on the Presidential Walk of Fame. That was redesigned and recreated. You have more gold there. But the difference is now is that there's a bunch of insults under each plaque, specifically for presidents like Obama and Biden. Under Obama's plaque, it says, one of the most divisive political figures in American history. And it repeats claims about saying that Trump's 2016 campaign was pretty much being spied on by the Obama administration, and that it also goes on to talk about Biden's plaque, where it calls him Sleepy Joe Biden and the worst president in American history. And it reads almost like Truth Social post. So it pretty much goes to show you what kind of leadership we're dealing with this administration. And it also goes to further let you understand what kind of boundaries this administration has in regards to personal attacks in previous presidencies without taking full accountability of what's happening in the country. Now, we know a bunch of happening right now when it comes to Americans being able to afford a cost of living, and also what it's like for Americans to be able to afford groceries, and also other prices going up that we're not expecting. I know there was some talk on our last podcast about gas prices coming down, but we know they're not coming down significantly to the point where it's going to make Americans think that other prices are going to start leveling out, because other prices are still high. Now, with that being said, let's start fact checking some of Trump's whatever he wants to call that, his address to America, but his dictator spout fest that he had the other night on December 17th. So Trump claimed that inflation is stopped, but year over year inflation was 3% in September and has been rising for the last 5 consecutive months. So I don't know where he's getting this information or what his team is prepping him to say, but he's clearly lying to the American people. He said wages were rising faster than inflation for the first time in years, but wages have actually outpaced inflation since June of 2023, long before his term. So he's basically saying that there's this problem and that the problem is not existent, but you ran on this problem and now you're making it seem like Americans are just, complaining. No, this isn't a golden age, Donald Trump. I don't know why he's trying to lie to us. It was a really weird setup. He's just talking to the camera. Yeah, it was just really weird. So he also claims that, obviously, like we just mentioned before, that gas, groceries, airfare, and hotel prices were falling rapidly, which contradicts the data that was shown previously. So Fox 5 DC released some information, and I'm going to show you what it says. And this information was actually shared to ABC News. And what they're saying, basically they go on to quote Donald Trump from what he said. He said, "I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast." And then Trump also goes on to say, "Let's look at the facts," as if what he was saying was actual facts. So the president said that under Biden, gasoline prices rose 30 to 50%, and hotel rates rose 37%, and airfare rose 31%. Okay. Another pivot. But in reality, the issue here with Donald Trump is that he's not understanding that what the BLS data is saying does not match what he's actually telling us. So overall meat prices have gone up about 8.5% this past year, and that's what the Bureau of Labor is saying. Beef prices are at a record high. So that's like 14.7% in the past year. And notably, Trump also doesn't really mention coffee, and that's the huge elephant in the room. Americans love coffee, right? Coffee is up 18.9%. And that's according to the BLS data from September. And then the price of coffee has risen in part due to the president's tariff on places like Brazil. And also last month, the White House began exempting coffee from his tariff. So there's an interesting thing happening right now where the administration knows certain things are happening, but they're using data to kind of cover up, fake data, mind you, to cover up the huge issue that's underlying, which is the middle of America and people being able to afford things that weren't normally this high. So anyway, lies from Trump. Now, Trump also touted a new 1776 or it's like 1,776 warrior dividend for military personnel, which, fact checkers basically have said the program was not yet funded and there was no understanding of where this was coming from. But he's saying that he's celebrating America because America was founded in 1776 and blah, blah, blah. And he's trying to seem patriotic. We all know that Trump's little spout to the public was him being full of shit. I'm not afraid to call Donald Trump out, and it seems like a lot of pundits aren't afraid to call him out either. And it comes to show you how disconnected a billionaire can be from the average American, and why the cult, his following, has not come to realize that Trump is not in this for them. He's in this for himself. And just because he likes to spout conservative ideology doesn't necessarily mean that he has your best interest. He's tricking you. The country's not doing great. This is not the golden age of America. Do not let Donald Trump fool you. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening here in Wisconsin. So the Wisconsin Senate passed the bill redefining abortion to exclude emergency procedures like ectopic pregnancy treatment and miscarriage care. So medical experts are warning, right, that this could limit emergency care, and it will across the state, which is concerning for places like metropolitan Milwaukee and Madison, because additional Wisconsin legislation would block public funds for healthcare for undocumented residents. And we know that in emergency situations, it's been long known that you don't turn someone away if they're undocumented, right? If it's an emergency, it's an emergency. Doctors have to do their thing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Trump administration. Clearly, they're going to try to find loopholes and try to regulate who can receive services. And they're definitely targeting undocumented migrants. And all of these changes to these policies and what's happening in Wisconsin right now is a huge influence from what's happening on the right in terms of regulating and making sure that people who are undocumented are receiving services when in fact they are not. This just attacks multiple people in this country that need assistance. So nationally, abortion remains a sticking point in federal negotiations over the Affordable Care Act subsidies, with both sides warning of political consequences in 2026. So there's going to be a lot of political consequences from this in 2026 because we already know about the rollbacks, what happened with Roe v. Wade, and we already know what's happening on a national level with the administration regulating contraceptives and who is able to access abortion in their state. And there has been a lot of conversation about how things are left to the state. But it's interesting knowing the policies that the Trump administration is pushing through. There are going to be some anticipated federal regulations when it comes to abortion care, any kind of care, when it comes to prenatal services or anything pregnancy treatment for women. So that's not good. And hopefully this next year in 2026, we will have people pushing back so that women can have the rights that they deserve and the rights that I should even be speaking on and that you shouldn't be speaking on. Because guess what? Women should be in charge of their bodies. All right, let's move over into another topic. So I want to talk about Vanity Fair. So Vanity Fair did their interview of Trump's cabinet. And I believe her name was Susan Wiles, or whatever her name is, who's the chief of staff, did a series of interviews throughout the year. And she uniquely did an interview, and she was asked about J.D. Vance, and she called him an opportunist, which is interesting because I agree. J.D. Vance has not announced a run for 2028, but clearly he's anticipating on doing that, which makes sense why the chief of staff would say that he's an opportunist because he is. He wasn't a Trump supporter initially. He is from Appalachia in the middle of nowhere, so he knows what it's like to struggle as an American, receive food share, receive benefits, come from a low-income family, as I do as well. So there's this weird disconnect with J.D. Vance. I think a lot of conservative white men thinks he speaks to them because he has similar struggles to a lot of people who come from similar backgrounds. But if you really, really listen, a lot of weird things are happening. The disconnect with Americans being able to access food share for that time and knowing that he was in the White House and being a mouthpiece for this administration. And, you know, he received an endorsement from Erica Kirk, the Turning Point USA CEO, the person who was married to Charlie Kirk, right? Now, it's been interesting, too, to see like little weird things come out, like their friendship being like highlighted a lot. I agree. Everything that's happening with what the chief of staff said. I like that she spoke to Vanity Fair and that she did those interviews because it lets us know that there's some transparency and maturity in the White House and that Americans aren't dumb because we're thinking the exact same thing that she's thinking based on what we see. Now, I know a lot of the MAGA cult can't see it because they're so in tune to what they agree with J.D. Vance. And yeah, he looks like me and he's doing all the best things for the country. Well, let's really dive into it. So media coverage continues to highlight that Vance's political evolution and shifting positions often framed as very strategic and opportunistic. And you know why that is? It's because it looks that way. When he released his book and when the Netflix movie was made, you can see the clear upbringing and the disconnect that we have with the guy that we see on TV and the guy that's receiving all these kickbacks from his millionaire friends and his billionaire friends that he's being connected with in Turning Point USA and for Project 2025. Now, we know that Mr. Opportunist will likely run for president, but what would that look like for Donald Trump? Donald Trump doesn't like being placated in terms of who's more popular than him. or there will be a shift and the party will slowly start to migrate towards Vance, which, Mr. Opportunist. Thank you, Vanity Fair, for releasing that. And thank you for telling them. And Susie Wiles, thank you for letting Americans know what we already knew. Moving on. So Marjorie Taylor Greene's midterm warning. In CNN interview, Marjorie Taylor Greene said the dam is breaking on the GOP, right? And Trump's control of the GOP is starting to weaken. She predicted that Republicans would go all in for themselves to survive for the 2026 midterms. But she's signaling that there's going to be internal fractures within the party, as there already are. And Marjorie Taylor Greene cited examples of Republicans breaking with Trump, including 13 GOP lawmakers voting against one of his executive orders. So it's interesting because Donald Trump is coming for Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? We talked about this on the podcast before, but right now we see that there's going to be a lot of checks and balances that are kind of starting to fall into place, and we're starting to see little signs of it. But most importantly, we're starting to see that there's people within the party not willing to align in the cult, and that Trump's grip on the party will weaken as people are starting to speak out and hold their own. At the end of the day, Donald, this is America, and people aren't going to cave down to your bullshit, and Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't one of them. You called her a traitor, and she's not holding back. So we'll see. Not saying that I trust everything from Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she's been pretty much telling it like it is. She's representing her district and now she's willing to speak out. Okay, so thank you for listening to the political portion of my talk. I want to talk briefly about COVID, flu, and RSV. Because I am getting over COVID myself. And luckily, I am starting to feel a little bit better, which is crazy because I felt like a truck hit me for the past 5 days. I even had to go into the hospital and get the IV and get fluids and all that kind of stuff. A little dramatic, but you know how I am. So the CDC reports a low but rising respiratory illness levels as of December 12th, 2025. With RSV, we're seeing it among children between the ages of 0 and 4. And this is increasing in the Southeast, the South, and the Mid-Atlantic. But it also hits close to home because I have children in my extended family and who I know who have RSV as well. So just be careful, parents. Be careful, everyone. The flu is also increasing in most regions. Some states are reporting a sharp week-over-week rises, especially in places like Wisconsin. Here in the Midwest, we're starting to see more of that. COVID is low nationally, but is climbing based on recent data. And obviously, I'm proof that that's happening because here I am with COVID. And Johns Hopkins experts warn of a holiday season surges across all 3 viruses. So my suggestion is just to go prepared, drink your stuff. If you need your antibiotics, when I mean drink your stuff, I meant like your medicine or whatever. Or have a cocktail, whatever. If that's going to make you feel better, have a cocktail. Just be careful, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season and that you stay safe and that you take care of yourselves. So ending this, the holiday weather, right? So we are going to be seeing not so much of a white Christmas this year, but that's okay because December 20th was National Ugly Christmas Sweater Day. And then now I believe the administration announced that federal holidays are going to be December 24th and 26th, meaning the day before Christmas, Christmas Eve, and a day after Christmas will be considered 2 days where you can take some time off of work based on what the federal holiday shift looks like or what the federal holiday calendar looks like. Again, above average temperatures expected across much of the U.S., reducing chances of white Christmas, like I said, in the Midwest. And snow is only likely for areas like the Great Lakes, so we might get a little bit of snow. The Rockies are going to get some snow. The northern tier states may get some snow. And more than 45% in the U.S. had snow cover in early December. And we had some frigid temperatures too. So the trends will likely melt much of it before Christmas. But, at least we were able to see snow on the ground. So I really hope you all enjoyed this today and that I brought you to it like I do every time. And if you are feeling that you want a special topic for me to cover in the future, let me know because I will do the damn thing. Thank you for listening to me clock that political tea and give a little bit of news updates. Now, stay tuned as we're going to slide right into that reality tea. Hey tea sippers, welcome to an all new episode of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. This is your host, Mark Long, getting into that pop culture and reality tea. And of course, we're going to start off in a Bravo verse with the cinematic Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about this because the girls are heating up, but there has been more shift in storyline. I know Meredith and Heather have been kind of going back and forth, but honestly, Meredith and Heather, what the fuck? Right now, it's just getting I need something to change. It's weird that they were really close, and now Heather wants to hold Meredith accountable, and then Meredith is feeling ganged up on. But I kind of want to talk about the confusion here because there were no cameras on the plane, as we talked about in previous podcasts. And there's so much vitriol going on with the girls towards Meredith about how she's just carrying herself. And I feel like every time I understand a dynamic of the group, there's something that I'm missing or something that I'm not getting, or Heather's trying to, hold someone accountable. And it's happening every season, and I've noticed it. And I want to get some more tea from some other podcaster. So let's listen to Carlos King and, of course, the fabulous Monica Garcia to see what they have to say.
All of us at one point in time has said some things about our friend or family members that we regret and we said in the heat of the moment.
For sure.
But what I will give Lisa, I love the fact that she's trying her best to right her wrongs. And I love the fact for sake of a 6-hour flight, while crazy rich agents were playing in the background, that Meredith did all the things you're alleging her to do. Okay, let's say for the argument's sake, I'm going to give you that. Where was that energy when Heather had a black eye, a physical demonstration of someone touching her? I'm lost by this. And
no.
Why is she?
That they didn't have that energy on the damn plane. Like, if this was so horrible, why didn't you step up on the damn plane? Why did you let it go on for 6 hours, as you say? Why didn't you say something in the moment? Why didn't you deal with it right then instead of, I don't know, the whole thing is so bizarre, Carlos. It really is so bizarre. And like I said, I feel like it's just there's nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else going on. I feel like Meredith's kids are truly her best friends. Especially, we've seen Brooks and hers relationship the most. That is her bestie. And if you watch in the van, she's on the verge of tears. She is so capped out. So he calls, she's going to take the call. And it probably would have been really comforting for her to talk to him in that moment, for him to be like, fuck those bitches, mom. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
Monica's not wrong. I feel like, Meredith was trying to look at the opportunity to call her son. Now, I'm not saying the way that she's trying to pivot and handle conflict is right, but I feel like something's off right now. Like, either Heather is really trying to hold Meredith to the fire and she's clocked her game on pivoting storyline and trying to control the narrative, or we're missing a lot of context here, because I noticed that when Meredith showed up late in Greece and she was walking in Greece and she was being all fabulous, but Brittany made a comment about how, she wanted to talk to Brooks, or how Meredith wanted to talk to Brooks. And Brittany's like, well, I haven't talked to my kids in 3 years. Girl, first of all, you were just filming with your friend last week, or your daughter last week, excuse me. I mean, she might as well be a friend because you don't really know her. So I feel like you can't really compare that struggle to Meredith. I also feel like, Heather, you're kind of beating a dead horse. I feel like this conflict was between Meredith and Whitney, and you're kind of jumping in to hold her accountable nonstop, when in reality, Monica and Carlos are right. Like, girl, what happened on the plane? We don't care. Second of all, Heather, didn't you lie about a black eye all season? We will never forget that. We will never forget that. And I know Monica feels some type of way because of Heather, but at the end of the day, Monica's not on the show. And even she could see it on the outside looking in. Listen, I'm going to need some of these ladies to stop trying to be producer all the time and just get into the gig, get into the bag, show up, do your job like Bronwyn, and go the fuck home. And if you need to drop news about your marriage or whatever, it'll come out naturally, or we'll see signs of it if you're a good housewife. If you're trying to play a narrative and create story like Whitney does all the time, then you're going to get a lopsided storyline. You're going to get kind of like a few seasons ago where Whitney and Heather were arguing in a bar and then Whitney walked outside. That was all orchestrated. Like, Whitney, stop. Like, just be a housewife. We don't need these combined storylines, these shifts, these, oh my gosh, Meredith, you took a phone call from your son. Like, girl, who gives a shit? Like, who cares? So that's my take on it. And I feel like next season, if Heather decides to come back, I think the ladies need to start holding Heather accountable, because she seems like she's the least relatable. Her and Lisa Barlow are kind of like my least favorites. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's a lot of questions that need to be asked at this reunion, which we're going to be getting in 2026. And I think we're going to be getting a lot more tea than what has been let on, especially when it comes to Bronwyn and Todd. So more should be coming out about that, and I'm excited for it. Wow. Well, that's just Salt Lake. Let's go ahead and get into more of these ladies. So I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Simone, right? So Dr. Simone deserves daughters. Yep, pick up your tea. Dr. Simone deserves daughters because you couldn't tell me that, and I don't have kids, but as a grown person, spending $60,000 on your mother's credit card, because it's not your credit card, she pays for that apartment, pays for her lifestyle, pay for school. I just can't imagine spending $60,000 on my mom's credit card. Granted, she's a breadwinner, and the boundary wasn't set by her. Maybe it was, but who knows? Clearly, it wasn't if he's spending that much money. But I feel like there's more to it than just him doing that. It's the fact that he made the comment about white people and what they do in their household. First of all, you're black. Not only are you black as her son, you are a black man in America with a privilege who will still be looked at as a black man in America. Please do not compare your struggles to a rich white person, especially in front of your mother out of all people, who is funding your life. So just the lack of understanding and the lack of maturity from some of her sons, it's just not okay for her. And I didn't like how Cecil just kind of sat there and let it air out like that. You're supposed to have her back when it comes to that. And I understand that Cecil's not the breadwinner, and I understand that Cecil doesn't have, well, he probably does have say-so, but I think she could use a lot of support. And I don't know the ins and outs of Cecil and Simone's marriage, but it's giving Simone has her hands tied. I remember earlier in the show, early seasons ago, where she was crying about Cecil and Jackie came to talk to her, and she explained to Simone that the way that Heavenly goes about marriage and she goes about marriage, the way Dr. Jackie goes about marriage, it's all different for everyone, which is interesting that she brought that up because you could see that as the seasons progress on. Heavenly is a little bit more conservative and traditional. And obviously we know Simone is not that way. She is the breadwinner. Her husband is in real estate. She has 2 sons. And the dynamics are just different. There's 2 doctors in Heavenly's household, 1 doctor in Jackie's, 1 doctor in Simone's. So the dynamic is just different, and the expectations are different. The roles are reversed, and if you want to look at it as gender roles and the way that a lot of people do. But in this circumstance, I just think Simone's situation is a lot different. So her handling of these boys is going to be different. But at the end of the day, the accountability falls on both of y'all. He should know better as a young black man, but as his mother setting that boundary, I'm happy that she's doing it right now. But girl, don't be surprised if you get pushed back, because you've allowed these boys to play in your face for this long and take their time to finish school, which I have no problem with people taking their time to finish school, but take your time to finish school and make sure you have something else going on. Make sure you're not spending $60,000 in your mom's credit card and then have her on camera crashing out at you because you don't understand the value of a dollar. That don't make any sense to me. So, yeah, Simone deserves daughters because I do think that, women would naturally kind of be a little bit more respectful in this circumstance, especially if they see a powerful black woman working her ass off. And I just think these men have, their role model is Cecil. And I think at the end of the day, that kind of falls on them as parents to make sure that things are being handled in a certain way in regards to finances. But you can't tell grown people anything what to do. But he ain't going to be on camera doing too many more. Just I spent $60,000. What do white people do and white people do that? That's not cute. Okay, let's go on to another topic. So the Jasmine brand, right, is basically reality TV, like a blogger. But they reported that 67 credit cards were found in the Osefo case that is pending right now, but the defense is calling it misleading. So basically, they said the plot is plotting in regards to the fraud case with the Osefos, and that they are basically saying that, the defense is basically saying that this is not completely true, and that there aren't all these multiple credit cards, and that there's a lot more to the story than we know. So from what the allegations are saying, obviously the court case is happening right now with the Osefos, and there's a lot of alleged things coming out. People are saying that they're saying hi to Wendy and that she's waving back, and that the Osefos look calm and demure in posture, and that they are moving things right along. But a lot of the tea is that people are saying that's coming out about this court case is that there's a lot more shadiness and fraud fraudulent claims than what we know. They have a lot to do with credit cards, not just the loans, of course, and not just the kickbacks they got from reporting the stolen items to insurance. So we will see how that unfolds. I'm praying for the Yosefos. Again, like I said, Wendy's having a really good season. And obviously, I've mentioned several times that Stacey is the standout for me. It'll be interesting to see how these ladies handle Wendy at the reunion once that films. I haven't heard anything about anything being filmed right now, but I do see the ladies out and about with Karen, which is interesting. I saw a video of Karen's birthday being celebrated at a dinner, and in the photo, I saw Kay, Giselle, and Cookie, which makes sense that Karen's kind of back in the mix and that some of the girlies are spending time with her, especially if they claim to be close with Karen and being in communication with her. But what I'm curious about is what's going to happen with Karen and the other ladies. Karen and Wendy can relate right now with the law. So let's get them to have a conversation. And I wonder what this means for future seasons. There's a lot of conversation about potentially Candace coming back to the show. And I don't know what that's going to mean for the dynamics, but I'll bring you the Potomac team once I learn more. But I don't know about these 67 credit cards, y'all, so we'll see if that's the case. Moving on to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So there are lots of rumors surrounding Kyle Richards right now, but let's start from the beginning. So in this most recent episode, we see that Bose hosted a speed dating event for the ladies in the Beverly Hills group, and they come over to her home and they meet a lot of men. They weren't, whatever floats your boat. But, I guess they were going there to meet a man, and a lot of them were dressed in black, which I found kind of funny and coincidental. And Kyle was sitting with Bose, and I believe besides Bose was Rachel Zoe, and they were talking about Kyle's interests, and Bose is clearly trying to get to know Kyle, and Kyle's being a little coy and like, oh my gosh, Bose, like, why are you asking this? And her confessionals of being a weirdo. When in reality, girl, spit it out. And she said, you never know. Basically, Kyle responded to Bose in regards to if she's found a suitor or not at the event. And she says that, well, I don't know if I'm going to want an Angelina or a Brad or Angelina, whatever she said. Girl, just say you're bisexual. Just say you're bisexual, you dip your toe in the pond. And say that when you were going through the stuff with Mo, that you were out dating. I don't even know if it was Morgan. Clearly, you had a thing with Morgan. And if it wasn't Morgan, it was somebody else. And in all honesty, no one cares if you're a lesbian. In the words of Garcelle, if you want to be a lesbian, be a lesbian. I just feel like that's the case. And I don't think there's anything holding Kyle back, because she went into her confessionals and made a comment about how her daughters and her family's very accepting of her and how she wants to love and live her life. And she thought there was going to be so much judgment and all this other thing. Kyle, welcome to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community, girl. Welcome to being one of us. This is what we go through. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what your safety net looks like. Imagine if people, were trying to come out and they didn't have the safety nets that you had with the accepting family and the wonderful daughters and that kind of thing. So, girl, I think when it comes to this, there's nothing to be shy about. Okay? I think it was more so she was going through the divorce and trying to figure out who she was and having a midlife crisis, as a lot of people do, right? A lot of people, when they get older, they have what's my purpose? Should I be married? And that kind of thing. And I believe that's what Kyle was going through, especially with Mo the past 3 years. Dorit made a great comment during the event as well. She said, Kyle, I've been going through a divorce for about a year, and you've been going through a divorce for about 3 years, or a separation for about 3 years. So, how are you moving on? So Kyle can't really compare her situation to the girlies, because Morgan's already been on TV, baby, in music, and you've been in music videos with her. So I'll see how things play out. I do really like Bose this season on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She's getting a lot of pushback online saying that she is jealous of Amanda. I can't see it. I always give the newbies a chance. And when Amanda came in and she sat down with Bose, and I believe Dorit walked in late, and Dorit's talking about her marriage, and Amanda's trying to give advice, and they're getting to know Amanda, and she's talking about what she does. Girl, what the hell do you do, Amanda? You're a counselor? You're a what? Listen, as somebody who also works in a helping field, I get it. But Amanda, So you give tips or you give financial advice? What is it? I think she just gives tips, and maybe Bose is misunderstanding her. But the gag is, Bose is clocking that she's not the kind of smart guru the way that Bose is in terms of numbers and stats. So I think she's clocking that and saying in her confessions that something is off with Amanda, and it seems like a scheme or a scam, for lack of a better term, a scheme this Todd set up, but instead is Amanda. I hope that's not the case. And, you know, I'm going to give her a chance. I don't want Bose to come on too strong. I'm glad she didn't say that directly to her face. But at the end of the day, I really don't need any more scheming with the Housewives. I think we're trying to get through another season that has been revamped, obviously with Garcelle being gone. But we still have Jennifer Tilly, and we still have Sutton. We still have some newbies. Obviously, Rachel Zoe, my fave. But, you know, there's a lot happening that's confusing. And there's a lot that will hopefully come out to the point where hopefully Erica and Amanda aren't going to be grabbing each other's hair. Because it looks like there's going to be a little bit of back and forth there. Or maybe it's going to be with someone else like Kathy Hilton. Who knows? But I'll bring you more tea. Kyle, come out wherever you are, baby. It's okay. All right. So I want to talk a little bit more about some other shows that I've been watching. So Canada's Drag Race has been giving a lot of drama, which I love. If you know me, when I watch reality TV, there has to be a little ounce of drama to make me kind of gag a little bit. And it's serving up a lot of camp. I'm not really seeing a lot of fashion girlies this season, but it's definitely a lot of personality and camp and like a lot of commentary. And, you know, a lot of the U.S. girlies kind of keep up the same trajectory, I would say, in regards to building out a new season of RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, I'm excited that that's back on MTV. But I will say Canada's Drag Race has kept up with the production value of the US version currently, because I feel like we're getting to know the queens a little bit more, and they're allowing the girls before they exit the competition to give us personality, meaning that there must have been some kind of change of production, because I'm just really enjoying the fact that we get to know the ladies. Like, Dulce was recently just voted off, spoiler alert. But she was one of the queens that had her Mexican background, and she was one of the girlies that kind of came into this competition fully realized with her own professional career. I believe she served the military, and she just served us what she could. But in my opinion, it was time. And I think what Canada's Drag Race is giving us is, here's a glimpse as to how the girlies are and what the personalities are like, but we're not going to let you know who's going to win, which I really appreciate with Canada's Drag Race, because so far, I mean, at least since Isis Couture and like maybe Giselle Lullaby, I believe is her name, since those two queens, there hasn't been any really like top-notch fashion girlies, which I kind of appreciate, because it paves the way for Canada to draw a line for obviously Canada versus the world, where we saw Lemon win, but also an opportunity for Canada to potentially do an All-Stars, which I would love to see. So I will be bringing you more about that. I'm excited for who's left in the competition, and hopefully things heat up within the next couple weeks or so. Now, speaking of the Housewives, I know there's a couple of Housewives on Traders. From what it looks like, we're going to be getting Portia Williams, Lisa Rinna, and Candace from Potomac. We're also going to be getting Dorinda again on the Traders. So I'm excited for the Traders to come back. My husband and I have been watching every year. But it's so interesting because, like, I saw something the other day that said if you put a housewife in a castle on the Traders, it gives CIA level confessionals, which is perfect because housewives are used to confessionals and carrying on that way. But are they up to the challenge? So we'll see how the ladies do, if they're up to hopping through courses and going into rivers and boats and that kind of thing, or going through the woods and running and capturing flags and all that stuff. We'll see how the ladies fare at that, because I can't see Dorinda doing all that, baby. I can't see her doing all that, but we'll see. Okay, so I wanted to end this segment by talking a little bit about, I can't get into the Stranger Things, but I did finish Welcome to Derry. And Welcome to Derry has been really, really interesting and surprisingly bingeable, because I watched it and it was kind of a little freaky for me. I had to stop for about a couple weeks because I didn't like seeing the fact that kids were being murdered, but I kind of did a little bit of soul searching and was like, well, what did I expect? It is a continuation of the It films, right, with Pennywise. So maybe I'm aging out of it, of that, but I also really enjoyed the storyline. Like, I love that they focus on the time period being the 50s, as I talked about in my podcast on episode 9, and how, you know, the racial violence and all that kind of thing was very prominent during the time. And Welcome to Derry did not shy away from that, you know? So it would have been interesting. Look, if Pennywise was in Hawkins, I probably would tune in, apparently. But I don't know. I'm not really getting anything from Stranger Things so far. But I'm really loving that second episode. So I'm probably going to finish watching that. But I just can't get into it the way I did with other shows. So I will keep you more updated on that. And last but not least, who is leaving the OC and who is joining? So we know that Vicky is back for season 20 based on what was announced at BravoCon, but there's a lot more speculation that we are going to get some new housewives and we're also going to get some demotions. Now, word on the street is that Heather Dubrow is out or that Emily Simpson is out, but I haven't heard really much about Gina or Katie being left out of the scene. And there have also been some reports of seeing I believe her name was Gretchen. Gretchen. Ugh. Miss Maga Gretchen. Ugh. Out with Jen, hanging out with, I believe her name was Jacqueline from the Real Housewives of New Jersey. I believe she was on the show 8 years ago. There's rumors circling out there that she's going to be joining the cast. Now, if you all remember, Jacqueline, when she was on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, was obviously living in the Jersey area, but had been back and forth from the San Diego area and the Orange County area, and that she now lives there. So I feel like that'll be a different energy in like on the original Real Housewives show, which is the Real Housewives of Orange County, which would be interesting. But I really hope they don't get rid of Heather Dubrow. She's my husband and I's favorite housewife on that franchise, and I think she just brings a different level of class. I think her one-liners are great. I think how she carries herself around the women and the dynamic is great. But that does open a door for Heather Dubrow to be anywhere and elsewhere. So that also makes me excited. We'll see. So with the Traitors and Candace and Portia getting back together, hopefully they don't rip each other's head off. All the way down to what's happening with the Yosephos. And not to mention, obviously, the tea is piping up in the Salt Lake City. And hopefully the girlies are going to get it together there. Let's stay tuned. So I'm going to be bringing you more political tea and reality tea. It's probably going to be within the new year. So I'm wishing you all a happy 2026. And thank you for tuning in to Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. I'm going to be bringing you more. And you all have a wonderful season. Hello, Tea Sippers. Thank you so much for listening to Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. This is your host, Mark Long. Just want to tell you that Season 1 has officially wrapped, which was my pilot season. I really hope you enjoyed our first 10 episodes of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. In the new year, I'll be bringing you exclusive interviews, a lot more political tea. We're going to be diving into a lot more Bravo celebrity tea as well. I'm going to be bringing you that celeb gossip and other random topics. We've already started talking a little bit about race. We're going to dive into a little bit more on LGBTQ plus topics. And of course, exclusive happenings in my life. Stay tuned. There's a lot going on. But most importantly, remember to be yourself, sip that tea, and don't let anybody ruin your day because you're fabulous at all times, baby. Thanks for being a tea sipper.